We're going to have to be shorter than usual, so I could speak for hours about this, so I'm going to try and stick to the main points. In terms of the methodology, we firstly conducted a literature review in which we looked at concepts such as public legal education, which was already described by Theo in his keynote speech, and gender-based discrimination. And we did that through a variety of sources, looking at academic research. A lot of KISA reports have been published, as well as on the Public Legal Education Network website. More interestingly, though, for me, it was the fieldwork. The fieldwork was divided into two. We had about 15 participants, and as we've been saying, that youths, it's actually the youths that are the experts. We're not the experts at all. So what we did is we actually brought in minority ethnic youth, and they were the co-researchers. So we had one focus group and one case study, and it's the young marginalized people who wrote their own stories on 4 different types of discrimination: institutional discrimination, familial discrimination, employment discrimination, and educational discrimination. The reason we did this is because we thought that as opposed to going via a theoretical notion, which many of us cannot understand because we understand best through identification, we chose to have actually their own stories and their own voices. So what I'm going to stick to here is quotes that came out in the focus groups and in the interviews, because I think it's their voices that actually highlight the situation better than any other kind of text we can find. After the co-researchers wrote these vignettes, we had 9 women and 6 men as interviewees, and we had a 2-tiered process. Initially, we had semi-structured interviews, and again, in the keynote speech, the language barrier was discussed. As we all know, that people feel most comfortable to speak in their mother tongue. Because of this, the interviews were conducted in 3 languages, in English, Arabic, and French, which meant that a lot more could be expressed more freely. And that is a recommendation we have for the future, to have professional translators and actually people from migrant communities work in these sectors, because that is when you have a more genuine and much more authentic conversation going because of the language flow. Okay, so the literature review and the field work, we had the same results. So in the literature review, we found that young migrant and refugee women aged 17 to 24 are most at risk of gender-based discrimination because of intersectional discrimination of racism, sexism, and ageism. So, interestingly, the us versus them dichotomy, which is very much entrenched here in Cyprus as well as a result of the Cyprus question. And that's, you know, we're here, they're there, they're coming here, they're taking things from us, we, them, this complete, in the language, we can see it even in the rhetoric, there's a complete distinction in the humanity. And that came up in the fieldwork as well. Many of, actually, I would say every single person was speaking about the us versus them dichotomy, maybe not in those terms, but what they were saying was in keeping with this notion. Misinformed social attitudes, which basically add and contribute to the discriminatory treatment. And the idea that public legal education would actually provide a stepping stone in attaining social justice. So the fieldwork echoed the reality. One of the things that we found was that the language barrier, most migrants and refugees, understandably, are not as comfortable in Greek and English because that's not their mother tongue, although we did find, and we do know that in Cyprus, the most comfortable and the most common language spoken here is English with the migrants. They're more likely to speak English than they are to speak Greek. And most services do not cater for the language barrier, and this is in regards to their mother tongue. Internalized disempowerment. So I'm going to give an example from the all-female focus group in which we were reading the vignette on employment written by co-researchers who they themselves have experienced this type of discrimination. And most women, interestingly, in this focus group said that hiding their religion from their employer here was a necessity in order to be considered for a job, because being, as you can see from my voice, this really angers me, because being a female Muslim migrant yielded very little chance of employment, regardless of their qualifications and expertise. Their race, their gender takes precedence over that. And this is a quote from, obviously everything is anonymized for their non-maleficence, but this is a quote from one of our fellow interviewees. She said, "It is her freedom to wear it, but on the other hand, it's better for her not to wear it, because there are a lot of jobs where they cannot accept you with the headscarf. If you were working in a Muslim country, or like in Muslim embassy, yes, then they will accept you the way you are, because in Cyprus they have the idea that every woman who wears a headscarf is Turkish." The reason I chose this quote is because I find that it highlights a lot that was in the literature review. Firstly, it discusses the us versus them dichotomy that is entrenched here because of the Cyprus question, and it also, I mean, there's so many things that it highlights, but it also highlights the concept of feeling like you have to hide where you come from in order to assimilate, let's say, which is a negative term, but that's unfortunately what is considered people need to do to fit in. There's a lack of faith in the system. Due to the lack of faith, because marginalized youth understandably don't trust that the system is out there to help them. Previously we were discussing someone who goes to the police station because they've been a victim of a hate crime and then the police station doesn't record it. So that in itself shows why there's a lack of faith in the system. As a result, they take it upon themselves to fight the system, and an example is, from a quotation, "The system will never fight for you, it's better to stand up for yourself." There is very little knowledge on legal rights. Not only legal rights, not only what are they, but also how do I access them? Where do I go to access them? If I know where to go, are they going to cater for the fact, like my language? Is any of that going to be accommodated for? And a young African refugee in the interview said, there is no education. And this concept was reiterated numerous times. Recommendations. On a social scale, we think that having a female empowerment group for marginalized female youth would really help in combating gender-based discrimination. The reason why we say that is because in 2 of the all-female focus groups, there was a really beautiful interchange between 2 female participants, one who had internalized the disempowerment from the society, which has projected onto her that she can't get there, it's really difficult for her, the concept of othering had really infiltrated her, and another one who was fighting against it. And that interchange was really interesting because you had 2 women who had experienced similar things and they were helping each other. And they all said at the end, we really wish that there were more groups like this, groups that we could attend, where we could talk to people who have like-minded situations to us and we can all help each other. Shout out to some of them who are here today. I'm not going to point them out, but some of them are here today, so thank you very much for being here. Specialized services on aiding and assisting marginalized youth, specialized youth workers, professional translators, counselors, social workers, and I think most importantly, qualified migrants in mediators in combating gender-based discrimination, people from the community. Empowerment through information, legal education, and legal assistance. The authorities disseminating good quality information regarding refugee and migrants' rights, but also in their local languages and not just in 1 or 2. Online and face-to-face training, which is what we're going to do, we're aiming to do within the Abuse No More project. But the online tools should accommodate all major languages, and face-to-face training should also consider translators, mental health professionals available to cater for the linguistic, social, and emotional difficulties of the recipients. Okay, I think I need to stop. Last slide. Recommendations for the educational system: that all religious discourses are taught, unbiased historical representations of the Cyprus question when discussing the Cyprus context, research on the intergenerational transmission of trauma, because that has a huge impact of discrimination, because of the impact of history and how it transcends from one generation to the other. And language is a key driver. Everybody should get viable access to Greek and English language classes in Cyprus especially. Thank you very much.